We'll wait till the end for the correct answer.
We can calculate it though, can't we? It's not too hard, is it?
No, it is, because what's happening is that people take a new set of cards, they shuffle them twice with a riffle shuffle, and that actually interleaves the cards in exactly, the way such that when they're dealt out, it's actually much more likely than you'd expect. So actually, it probably wasn't a big coincidence after all.
Hello, I am Sophie Duca, adorable comedian and reluctant Aquarius, and my strangest coincidence was when I was traveling in the country of Ghana, completely lost. I spontaneously, despite having been previously very well adjusted, spontaneously had a 4-hour vision of my late grandmother, and then later realized that the waterfall I had been wandering around was actually a waterfall next to which she had grown up. And I coincidentally had also taken some psychedelics.
And this is our panel.
David, we're going to be talking about luck, chance and coincidences. And I thought we should start with a definition. So what is your definition of a coincidence?
Okay, the one that's been provided by some really good statisticians is a surprising concurrence of events perceived to be meaningfully related with no apparent connection. Which I quite like, because it means it's got this element of surprise, it's got this element of its emotional impact, that it has, people feel something about it, and yet there doesn't seem to be any reasoning behind it.
So that's a very important part, isn't it? The emotional impact. That bit where, again, we always hear the normal thing I was thinking about and then they rang. And it's that sense that whatever your yearning has been for perhaps a conversation is then fulfilled. So that's part of the narrative of that, making that a coincidence.
Well, it's things that make something a story. People are interested. Oh, did you know what happened to me? So it's had an impact on people. They don't just sort of ignore it. And people remember them, like Marcus did. For their whole life, people remember these things that happened to them. It's a very powerful stimulus.
And do you find, Sophie, I mean, you've just mentioned an incredible coincidence. Are you someone who's quite good at kind of being a little bit logical in terms of, do you know what, I think this coincidence is just actually it happened because, or are you someone who thinks, oh, do you know what, I might elevate this to a kind of synchronicity moment?
Oh, I love serendipity. I love things happening for a reason. Like in my world, nothing happens just because it happens. It has to have happened because I'm special and important. I just think it's nicer to look at life that way. I think the thing about coincidences is that colloquially, people talk about coincidences and it's so obvious why the thing has happened. Like people get excited when they see people they know on holiday. They're like, oh my God, we ran into Flopsy, Mopsy and Areola in Cambodia. Can you believe?
I love the idea you're actually going to bump into some rabbits and they're your closest friends.
But, people are like, oh my God, like, what are the chances that they were also at this exclusive resort? It's just kind of like people just moving in the same circles, just in a different side of the world and thinking it's a coincidence rather than very likely. But anything actually surprising, I'm like, it's fate.
And I think very often that it's a coincidence because we really don't appreciate probability very well. So, I think David's one about the birthdays is a perfect example because, if you ask how many people do you need to be in a room for there to be a more than evens chance that two people have the same birthday, most people will say, oh, maybe 150 because they're thinking about their own personal birthday. But the way that the network can happen of pairing people up means you only need 23 people in the room and there's more than evens
Right, Marcus, we're going to have to stop you on this one, right? This
Yeah.
is a statistic that we have been given over and over again. How many times have we attempted this on this show? And how many times have we found out that a group of 23 people, there are two people? Now, this is one of those ones which is beautiful to hear, because I've seen people go, no, we've got to, go on then, right, yeah.
No,
is this going to be anecdotal evidence?
No, this is real evidence. I've done it with the Women's World Cup. There are 32 countries. Each squad has got 23 people in it, which is perfect. So all you have to do is take all the 700-something thing, look at all their birthdays, and you find out of the 32 teams, 15 teams have got two people in the squad with the same birthday.
Right, so that'll be astrology, won't it? Because that's because they've got the star sign to make them good footballers.
And Nigeria.
Martin, actually, Robin's got a point here because actually more footballers...
He hasn't got a point. Don't say that.
Nigeria has got two players both born on Christmas Day, and they're called Glory and Christy. Isn't that lovely?
But Marcus, could you step through the reasoning? How would you go about calculating that number?
Oh, that's really interesting because you shouldn't approach it directly. Actually, what you should do is to calculate the opposite. So what's the chance of having 23 people that don't have the same birthday? And this means, that you bring somebody up on stage, they've got to have one of the 364 dates, which are not the one that's on stage. So that's 364 over 365 chance that they miss that birthday. Then you bring the next person up. They've got 363 days. And so you build up these fractions, which you multiply together. 23 of them, as they decrease, actually get you below 50%, and therefore the chances that two will have the same birthday are above.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in a classroom, I would then start doing some experiments. As you say, they never work out. But I know that, the front row of the audience here, there's 16 people. If they looked at the last 2 digits of their mobile phone numbers, there's a 72% chance that at least 2 of you have got the same last 2 digits. But I'm not going to ask you to try, because it won't work. It never does.
That was very precise again. So you said 16 people, there is a 72% chance.
Yeah.
Did you do that in your head?
No,
then?
I looked it up.
So have you got a look-up table if there are 18 people or 20 people or 15 people, or did you count the seats earlier?
It's in my book.
So
I
are
had
there
someone
16?
try and do this to me. I had a chugger come up to me on the street and be like, I'm going to guess your sort code. And he did, and it turns out that they are not unique to individuals. They are very, very common between other people. But I was really impressed.
But this coincidence, it sounds like a bit of fun with birthdays and how many people's phone numbers will match. But I suppose in everyday life, David, we make important decisions based on our understanding of chance and statistics and coincidence. So, for example, a topical one, which is the reliability of trains or otherwise. So for example, let's say that London to Manchester, let's say there are 2 train companies running the trains, and 1 month, 10 trains break down. They're all from the same company. So there are 2 ways you could approach that, couldn't you? Is it a coincidence, or does it mean there's something wrong with that company and their maintenance? So how are we to make rational judgments and not just jump to conclusions about things that feel right?
Okay, you've got half an hour for a lecture on p-values, I hope. Yeah, that's what statistics does. You look at, if it were just chance, how likely it is to get such an extreme difference between the companies. Well, if one company's got 10 times as many trains running as another, or something, that could explain it. So you work that out, and if it's a really tiny number, you know that, well, there's something other than just chance that's happening. And then you look for another reason why it might be. So quite a lot of statistics is working out, well, how surprising things are. How compatible is the data with just, bad luck? Or how extreme are the events that you think, oh no, you wouldn't expect this to come up under the play of chance. It is quite strange how much that is referred to in our daily lives. People say, it's just chance, it's just luck, or something like that. And we live with this all the time. And it's basically things we can't explain.
I think some interesting examples like the Bulgarian lottery where 6 numbers came up and then the following week the same 6 numbers came up and you think, God, that sounds so suspicious. But actually when mathematicians analysed that, they saw that the number of lotteries that have been run around the world over the years, there should have been one moment when that happened. But of course, it spikes. We noticed that. We haven't noticed all the other times when it didn't happen.
Well, that's the thing, a day without coincidences is somehow more unlikely than a day
Well, again,
with
it's that emotional reaction. We notice the thing when it's weird, but not all the millions of other times when something unweird happened.
I want to just go back to the trains. As someone who's a regular user of our crumbling infrastructure, can we work out, when we hear an alibi from a train company for their reason, say there's camels on the line or something like that, when it's the 3rd occasion of camels being on the line near Cheshunt, is there a way that we can look at the likelihood of the camel escape? I don't know why I'm using camels, but I just am, okay? That kind of thing. So when you hear certain things, you go, that's statistically now unlikely for this to have happened 3 times in a month.
Yeah, well, camels do come in clusters, I think, so we'd have to take that into account.
But when you hear the excuse for why your train is yet again not running, can you start to go, do you know what, this particular alibi has occurred too often?
Yeah, well, you've got a basic skepticism of people wanting a story, as Sophie was saying.
I love the camels. I believe in the camels.
Yeah, but you'd like a reason for everything to happen. And everyone loves a reason for things to happen. Whereas people just don't like saying, whoa, that's bad luck. Certainly in the trains, I don't think that's bad luck. I just think someone's screwed up.
When we say there's a chance that something is going to happen, what do we actually mean?
Okay, we could argue about that for ages because it depends whether you think that the world is basically probabilistic and stochastic and there is some essential, absolutely irreducible uncertainty about things happening at core, or whether you just think the world is incredibly complicated and we can't grasp it all. For me, I don't care either of those. It could all be the will of God. It could be anything. All I know is...
Well, thank you then. Good night.
It
doesn't care. The panel...
I personally, for me, there's unavoidable unpredictability, and I call that chance.
That's interesting. So you don't care whether the world is absolutely, in principle, predictable, because in practice it never will be. And so the origin of the chance doesn't matter to you at all.
It's such a relief. I don't have to care about, is the world basically deterministic or is it basically probabilistic? Who cares? Makes no difference
Physicists
to me.
care.
Zero difference to my life.
I can see why you didn't do that philosophy degree now. But that is, I mean, what about you? So, because really what we're hearing there from David is that free will's an illusion, these things are just going to happen.
No, he said he doesn't care whether free will's an illusion.
Well, no, he's saying it just doesn't matter. I mean, he might as well be saying free will's an illusion as far as I'm concerned. From an existential point of view, how do you feel at this particular time?
I feel infinitely challenged by that idea. I don't think things are just going to happen. I think that you have to be able to make things happen. Otherwise, what am I manifesting for? Yes, things are random and cruel and hard to explain, like chaos and disaster and certain world leaders' haircuts. But I do think that you can increase the likelihood of things to happen.
Marcus, I don't know what your view is, because to me, the origin of apparent chance, even if it's absolutely unavoidable, as you said, the origin of it, to me, is an important question.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think this is one of the most interesting questions of science, whether there is anything genuinely random happening in our universe. I mean, quantum physics, one interpretation of it is that that's about the only place where something is random is happening. Pre-quantum physics, of course, we talked about Laplace's demon, the fact that if you knew all the equations and knew the setup thing, you can just run the equations and know exactly everything that's going to happen in the future. But of course, then we discovered chaos theory, which said actually, even if we knew everything up to incredible detail, but not exactly, still doesn't mean we can make predictions, because it might be the 50th decimal place, which actually takes the equation